Well, good Tuesday morning to you, and welcome to another edition of Expert Alert. I'm your host, Jim Tabor. This is where we bring in experts from different businesses along the Gulf Coast to kind of educate you on some things that are available to you. And today we have back with us, as always, Thad McIntyre with PowerMark Properties here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. How are you?
Doing well, Jim. Thank you for having me.
How about this weather? Can't decide what it wants to do.
Typical South Mississippi, right?
Does this deter your real estate business at any time?
No, not at all.
Not
Some
at
people
all?
like it because then they can get to see the change in weather and see if the yard floods. So
Good point. Good point. Well,
Rain's not always bad.
this morning, what we're going to do is we're kind of going to enlighten you on questions that are asked a lot about home buying or home selling. Whether you're a first-time buyer or not, or someone who is just wanting to move into another home. So, what is the first step in the home buying process?
first step is to always seek out a lender. Lender is the most important thing because you can find out if there's any hiccups or if what you thought you could afford you really can't afford. And with interest rates going up slightly right now, someone's buying power has been taken away a little bit. So we always like to tell our buyers to reach out to a lender first. And we had Don Blaze with CMG here last week kind of reiterating that with us again and talking about some loan programs. So we want to find out exactly where you stand, kind of understand the difference between closing cost and prepaids and down payment. Down payment is so huge. People think that the down payment portion is to include all of their closing costs, and it's not. They're two different animals.
And there's a time when both the buyer and seller may split the closing costs, or the seller may offer to take care of the closing costs?
Yeah, or even the lender. So sometimes the lender can step in and help out with that as well. So if you've got a buyer that doesn't have all the funds to close, the seller can do it. It's a negotiable item all the way through the contract.
Okay, good. How long does it usually take to buy a home?
Oh, right now it's taken about 45 to 60 days for us to get a contract closed. Typically, time frame is running between 30 to 45 days, but we're a little bit behind, and I think most lenders have caught back up. We just had holidays thrown in there, weather setbacks, and just everything happened at one time with all of the interest rates going low too.
Now, we've heard two different terms. What is a seller's market? What is a buyer's market? So start off with, what is a seller's market?
Seller's market is typically whenever the seller is in control. So the seller is helping the prices drive up, and whenever they can kind of dictate what's going on with the transaction. Buyer's market is just the opposite. Prices tend to start going down and the buyer has control of what's going on with the transaction.
Now, I understand you mentioned interest rates, and a short-term spike in interest rates can cause an effect on the fence buyers?
Yes, very much so. And we're seeing that right now. 2 weeks ago, people could afford probably $18,000 to $20,000 more in a home than what they can this week. Hopefully that'll change again and it'll go back down, and we'll be able to see some of those people get that equity portion back again and be able to afford more of a home. It's also an opportunity for someone to get off the fence. So all of our fence buyers that are just sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen, they realize that it went the wrong direction. So they all of a sudden want to buy it.
It's been really low though.
Yes, it's almost free money at this point, and so we're coming back up, and I can remember whenever interest rates were at 18%. So
wow.
Telling my age a little bit, but it's been around that high, and I've seen it in the market whenever I was doing real estate for 8 to 10% even. So those were exceptional rates at the time, but now we're in the 2s and almost to the 3s. So that's, like I said, that's almost free money.
Well, I remember buying a home in South Carolina in '98 when the interest rates, I want to say, about 8.5%.
Yep.
And now they're like what 2.5%, 3%?
Yeah, almost 3.
And I mean, that's low.
Yes.
I mean, they're not going to give it to you, so you might as well. So what is a buyer's market?
So a buyer's market is whenever the buyer is in control of the transaction, whenever they're able to negotiate more of a lesser purchase price than what the seller can demand. So sellers are in control, prices go up. Buyers are in control, prices typically go down.
And if there's a short-term drop in interest rates, that's good for the buyer.
Absolutely.
You definitely want to take advantage of that.
And a lot of lenders will not lock the interest rate in. They do what we call floating the market. So they're able to watch and see what's going on. So if you've got a really good lender that's savvy at what they do, they're able to kind of tell you in advance a little bit that the economists are watching it, and we should see a downtick or an uptick. You want to go ahead and lock at that point. So if they know that it's going to increase up, even just a half a point can change your payment drastically, Or you could do what we refer to in the industry is pay discount points. Discount points takes your interest rate from, let's say, 2 3/4 down to 2%, but it could be a substantial amount of, in our market, probably $4,000 that the buyer would have to pay to get that lower interest rate. So it's not always the best situation to be in, but it does leave you the opportunity to get that lower interest rate as you could to qualify for that home before.
How much do I have to pay an agent to help me buy a house?
Most of the time what happens with that is the listing agreement has the listing agent dictates to them what the commission is going to be, and most agencies co-op with the buyer's agency. So a listing agent gets the commission, let's say for example 6%. That's typically split 50-50 most cases between the listing company and the buying company, and then at that point it's split with the agent. So it does break down. It breaks down to the agent not getting what most people would think of as being the full 6%.
Now here's a big question I'm sure everybody has. What kind of credit score do I need to have to be able to buy a home?
I feel like a politician when I answer this question. There's just no black and white straight answer to that. Some companies require, or some programs require, let's say a 620. There are some lenders that will go down to a 580. So with some good explanation and maybe not a lot of late pays, but maybe they've got higher debt, which causes their credit score to be a little bit lower, you can get down to a 580 with good explanation and a good lender. Most of them are going to be at a 620 to 640. So
if you're in the 700 range, you're doing really good.
You're doing really well. Okay. And you probably have all of your ducks in a row with your W-2s and your bank statements and everything lined out, ready to go to the lender.
Now, one of the things you mentioned a while ago was down payment.
Yes.
How much does it usually require as far as a down payment to buy a home?
If you're military, 0 down payment. So military can get in with 0 down payment. There are certain closing costs that the veteran cannot pay, so the seller is going to be obligated to pay those. On a FHA or government loan under those circumstances, 3.5%. And there are some people that want to avoid private mortgage insurance, and that's the insurance on the mortgage to protect the lender. And that can go, once they've reached 20%, PMI drops off. So if they're looking to avoid PMI, private mortgage insurance, they can put 20% down.
So that's a conventional loan.
That's a conventional loan.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you, as far as when somebody's out shopping for a home, how many homes should they usually look at before they decide on one?
First thing to do is decide, number one, on your agent. Stick with one agent because they're going to work with you and know exactly what it is you're looking for, and you're understanding their makeup of what it is that they're trying to do.
Right.
And I always tell people, talk to your agent, communicate with them so they understand what it is you're after. We always do a buyer's consultation with all of our clients up front. That typically takes about 30 minutes, but it gets a chance for us to know each other, know what it is what you like. And before you decide to fire your agent, just like you would fire an employee, you kind of give them a written or a reprimand of some sort. So just talk to your agent and let them know what it is.
And I think that's one of the important things, because if you're just working with one agent there and you tell them, I want a home with a nice roomy kitchen.
Yes.
Something like that, bedrooms or whatever, a fenced-in yard, so they know what to look at instead of you've got half a dozen of them running around town, looking for something for you.
Yep. We work off of commission, so whenever we don't get paid till the transaction closes.
Exactly.
So we need to make sure that we're there with you the whole time. There's nothing worse than getting your feelings hurt whenever you don't hear from your buyer and then all of a sudden you find out that they bought through somebody else.
Yeah.
So just work with your agent.
What is earnest money?
Earnest money is your good faith money. That's what you give to the agent to show the seller that you're serious about that property. It sometimes is a non-refundable earnest money, but in most cases it is refundable should something go wrong with the transaction. So for example, the home inspection. The buyer and seller can't come to terms on the home inspection or even terms on something else in the contract. Those funds typically get returned to the buyer.
Okay. Say I want to, I make an offer on a home. How long should I usually wait for the seller to respond to my offer?
Right now, I'm going to say that the sooner the better, and you're kind of expecting within a 24-hour turn time, unless the seller's out of state or it's an elderly couple that may not necessarily do internet documents and you've got to drive out to their house and present them hard copies. So 24 to 48 hours is typically what we see in our contracts.
And what if it's rejected? Start all over again?
You can. Some people think that if they go through and offer them a ridiculously low amount, the seller kind of gets their feelings hurt and they will just reject the offer. Nothing wrong with going in with another offer, and basically swallowing your pride and saying, I'm sorry, I'll up my price some. And typically you can get to the terms that way.
Yeah. Let me ask you one quick question here.
Sure.
We're out of time. Should I order a home inspection?
Always. I always suggest a home inspection.
Okay.
Because unless you're a licensed contractor, you may not know exactly what it is that the blind eye can't see.
Right. All right.
So,
Thank you so much for being here.
Great
again.
being here.
All right. PowerMark Properties, Thad McIntyre. If you're in the home market to buy a home or to sell a home, you can give them a call or you can visit with them. They're on Pass Road in Biloxi. And they'll be back again next month for another edition of Expert Alert.
If you have a question for any of our experts, go to WLOX.com and click on Expert Alert. For a list of any of our upcoming experts, go to WLOX.com and click on Expert Alert.